Hello, everybody, and welcome to Capsule Cast Teams. This week, I will be hosting, as per usual, DoorGuard with my co-host Donut
Hello.
and our lovely guest this week, Oasis.
What up?
Oasis will be here to talk about his pride, his green men, his team Namek. You excited to kind of spread the word of your whole arc, basically?
Bro, you lost me at pride in my team. How dare you?
You did pretty well. Might have
You
another
feel it,
good
yeah.
season coming in. Guys certainly haven't lost anything coming out of last season.
Says you. I mean, we'll get into it later.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? Yeah.
Well, let's get moving on to our first slide here, the banner and what is Team Namek. So, Oasis, I guess in a few sentences, describe what is the team? Like, what is the theme of the team? What makes up the team?
I mean, originally, before season, what we on, 10? Season 10, it was originally just all Namekians. Anyone who's from planet Namek or related to, the planet. So it consists of Piccolos, Tambourine, stuff, all the green slugs. Now, going into this season, it is anyone, related to planet Namek or a Namekian, plus anyone created by the Dragon Ball. So all the Shadow Dragons are now part of our list. That's why you will see Nuova on our banner, the best person on our team.
Yeah, certainly has been a great change, allowed a little bit more diversity in your master list. Uh, Donut, seeing that coming out, you already know the power of the Shenrons. Both Shin and Nuova have been monsters in the past, but them gaining Nuova certainly been something, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's put a whole new dynamic, whole new curveball into the lineup because yeah, you have a lot of characters from Namek. Um, usual um characters list you'd imagine, the late Piccolo, early Piccolo, Nail, all very decent characters. Late Piccolo especially is really strong. So have Nuova to kind of help show up any other weaknesses and has a great B2 spam, and just it's made a whole different monster for Namek. So when you plan for them, you have to it's not just one character and if you get past him, that's the hurdle. No, you have multiple different checkpoints you have to hit and say, hey, how do I match these characters?
Yeah,
Is
for
that really what the league thinks of us? Because I've always seen it as if you beat, I mean, originally, before the new update, if you beat Lake Piccolo, you beat the team.
Well, yeah,
And
that's
they
what I'm
were
saying.
less
Like,
scary.
yeah, like Piccolo was like the elite character type of thing, right? And then you had if you have Nuova, and I was like, well, yes, we have late Piccolo done, but now we have Nuova in the back just waiting, standing there menacingly, right? So it's a little bit more of a one-two punch instead of just all in on one character.
Yeah, more like a punch in the wet noodle. Sure.
I mean, I would mix in that while Nail's maybe not an elite character, he's certainly
Sure.
been showing up as a strong character. And when we get into the individuals, we can talk about all their pros and cons. But I think
Of course.
overall, when you look at a team that's more or less kind of consistent around in terms of product, Namek's not a bad one to see, and that's why they've had some pretty good seasons out there. Maybe
Mhm.
they're not bowl winners going around and destroying the Tenkaijis all the time. I get that can be part of the frustration. But at the same time, I think most people see him as a threat because their characters just all around all seem very similar in style and consistency, with some outliers in obviously late Piccolo and Nuova sometimes just absolutely popping off.
Sure.
Trust me when I tell you, when you say that all our characters are similar in style, that's been a curse for the longest time, I swear. Because outside of King Piccolo, every single member of our team wanted to be on a melee build. And since we have limited Vitoras, that's quite literally impossible.
Sure.
So trying to build like a second B2 or trying to build a game really hurt the team overall for these past few couple.
Yeah, building's always been an issue, and I agree. It's both seen as like a strength and a weakness. It's something where it's like, yeah, they all perform a similar role, so they're easy to build. But at the same time, you're limited in those resources, so it's like, hey, I know what they're gonna do. The issue is I have too many that do the same thing. So, and again, we can get more into specifics on each character, but I think in terms of describing Namek, you can quite clearly see here what they offer. So, is there any other remarks on what makes Namek, or is there anything else you want to bring up kind of as a generalization of the team?
Uh, Not particularly outside of just for green men with a pwned pick with the Frieza Force in their herb in particular,
Oh. Alright.
personally.
Do you have any questions, Donut, about kind of general team aspects, or you guys want to get moving on to the squads?
I think when you get into the squad science, I think a lot of what Namek is very face up in what they like to do, as they have a lot of similar characters, right? And you just have your big two, right? Or I guess 2.5 if you include Nail. So I think a lot of things are they are very face up in what they want to do, but they do it very well, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly most of the characters on there have had very good moments. So with that, let's get moving on to kind of the head honcho, late Piccolo himself. Many people fear this man. He certainly brought a lot of fear this last season, especially in the off season. He has very strong melee. His B2s are just absolutely ginormous in damage. I mean, overall, he's just seen as kind of the green badass. Really fights Cell for that title of Green Man of the League, but obviously not quite in the same boat as we've seen. But he's also had a lot more build diversity than Cell, which has helped kind of fill out his niche on the team. Though he does have his issues, unfortunately. His ult, while being Hellzone Grenade and quite awesome to look at, is quite lackluster in its output. It's very hard for it to hit and very hard to set up. Um, due to being needing to fill in so many niches on the team, it makes him a little flaky. And unfortunately, he shares all his costumes with early Piccolo, so they almost look like the same character. They didn't. They
Yep.
could have done so much, or given him like a third costume, or done all this other stuff, and now we just got, you know, cape on, cape off. Unfortunately, no color changes or nothing. So, Oasis, how would you describe kind of your main man here?
He does what he wants whenever he wants, whether that's a good or a bad thing. That's up to the opponent. Honestly, I love this man to death. The fact that I can build him as a tank, as a meleeer, as a spammer, as whatever the hell I'm thinking of, it's fantastic. Like this man, it truly has put together the team, and is one of the main reasons why this team is still able to function. You know, like you were saying, if he were only able to be on, I don't know, attack +2 or whatever, then I would be running around trying to figure out what I build on Tambourine or what to build on Nail. And it's because of how flexible he is. It's what makes him such a potent fighter, you know. And then of course, like you were saying, his melee is fantastic. His B1s are fantastic. All of him is fantastic. And of course, he needs a weakness. That's why his ultimate is really. Imagine if it was a rush ult. If it was a rush ult, I think he would have been the best character, one of the best characters in the league, personally speaking.
Yeah, I think if his ult, or yeah, if it was either a rush or maybe it was like the
A ball
orbs,
weapon. Yeah.
it froze time until they shot instead of like basically as soon as he puts them in the air, all of a sudden things are working and the characters can just kind of walk around. It would it's just any sort of subtle change there certainly could have added a lot. Donna, obviously you had to face against late Piccolo, and he obviously was a character who posed quite a threat. How'd you come across him in the season?
When you look at Light Piccolo, I akin him to Cell, right? And does to melee with healing, and that's what he does, and he does it very well. And so I look at him, I plan like, well, how do I handle it? My team has a lot of characters who can go toe to toe with that. We have 16 Cell, so it wasn't as much of a puzzle piece. We just matched up and said, hey, I have two of the best melees myself. We should be able to match him pretty well. But for other teams who may not have that go-to um, melee heavy fighter like a Fasha, Super Boo, Ultimate Gohan, etc., there's a little more of a, hey, how do I handle this? Do I do a B2 and try to spam him out? Well, if he gets any sort of momentum, like Piccolo just wiped the floor with you, it's very much of a conundrum, right? For not all teams, but a good majority of teams, I feel. And if you don't find something that matches him, you're in an okay spot, but then it's a coin flip, right? And that's not exactly great when you're trying to plan for a playoff match or even just a regular main season match. Coin flips are never what you want to do, but sometimes that's how it is. And I feel like Piccolo, the problem with him is you don't know where he's going to be, right, in the lineup. He has started, he has closed, he's it's not as simple as, you know, oh, 16's gonna start. Like, no, it's not that simple, right? So if you find yourself in a bad matchup with like a 19 versus late Piccolo, well, you're kind of screwed this time around, and that's what makes planning for late Piccolo so difficult. His ability to be in any spot.
Yeah, and even with that comment on pairing melees up, we've seen many a time where he was paired up against other teams' kind of top meleeer, and he ate them and the next character before finally
Yep.
tagging, not even going down. So
Yeah, that was Ultimate Gohan, I believe, in playoffs. Yeah.
yeah, he came in and he showed him what's what. So he
Yep.
has his you can't really counter him, and it's hard to predict where he's going to go, and even what he's going to run because of that versatility. So definitely
Exactly.
a scary member of your squad there, Oasis.
I mean, I will say though that the main reason why it's so hard to face him, not just because of lineup versatility, is the fact that if or when I'm able to get late Piccolo to not only melee, but also utilize his B2s, that's when he becomes such a scary character. You know, like if he was just using his melee, sure he would get a character maybe a bar off the next, but it's the fact that he's comboing off along with his light grenade doing 7k plus whatever combo melee damage he does, that right there is what makes him such a phenomenal fighter. And honestly, while that is true, I do feel like he should get his special beam cannon reduced to 3 bars because special beam cannon by itself is it's kind of lackluster. It's kind of sure it pierces other B2s, sure, but as a beam B2 that doesn't stun often, unlike the Kamehameha, this is pretty bad. Pretty horrendous. So, all in all, versatility in melee, versatility in B2s, special beam cannon should go to 3. This man's a monster. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, he's light grenade, for those that don't know, is a very large AoE, so it does some big damage and can be quite scary and very difficult to dodge. And he loves to do the little little stutter step backwards and throw it while comboing, so there's almost no way to dodge it. It hits quite often, and he has shown it to be an extremely scary tool in his toolbook.
Now, of course, you were saying though that he is flaky at times, and that is true. There are many times, I believe, it might have actually been versus you doing it, where late Piccolo just didn't show up like at all.
Yeah, I think that was. I think that was when Cell went up against him, something like that.
Probably. Like, this man just didn't fight back at all, and it's when that happens when you realize chances are looking slim for the team.
Yeah.
Though, to be fair, I don't think that's purely his thing. It's just one of those when you have an anchor character, one of those characters that you do depend a lot on how well they do, and they struggle, that's when it's scary, because every character falters. It is, random with the AI, but he's a character that they basically never want to have do that. He's there as androids are with Cell or we are with Kid Buu. He's your kind of your trump cards. You're like, oh, please, I don't have a bad performance this week. And unfortunately, Namek's early Piccolo here can indeed falter from time to time. It's the sad reality of the situation.
It is what it is.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about in terms of your main man here, or should we get moving on to the next kind of contender in your kit here?
Oh yeah, the bum himself. Yeah, let's move on to him.
So moving on, I wouldn't call him a bum. You had to fight for this man, Nuova Shenron. Considered one of the best spammers in the league, which is ironic considering how he spams, but a very, very strong character. He is very strong B2, so strong that they've been nerfed multiple times, and yet they still are very powerful. He has very, very powerful rush blasts. He's very quick melee, so it just really helps to kind of help out in some of that build diversity and a very just strong member of the squad, though he does have issues as well. His ult is arguably one of the worst ults in the game. A lot of the same reasons that late Piccolo ult's bad, but even worse, because at least late Piccolo's tracks, this one does not. And then you mix in that his spam B2s are 3 cost and 4 cost, makes it a little hard for him to truly spam, and then you mix in that he's banned from Master Blast, Rush Blast 2, and from Eternal Life, quite limits his builds and how to output his damage. So he does certainly have his areas that he can struggle in terms of trying to build him, but as a character overall, I think most people would consider him one of the bigger threats in the league. So, Oasis, how would you describe him? You obviously wanted him with the fighting over custody, so
I mean, okay. To be fair, leading into this season, Nova was a strong character. He was a 60k character who was decimating teams. That's why I wanted him, and that's why I fought for him and won him. But trying to replicate, trying to get him to do the 60k damage every week has been a hassle and a half, to say the least. Ever since they nerfed his charge rates, it has been a struggle to keep this man spamming his B2s. And since that's his main source of damage, obviously that leads to some problems when he gets, rushed down or, attacked, I guess. I don't know. But in theory, Nuova Shenron is a very strong character who can carry teams like it's no one's business. In practice, though, this man sleeps a lot. He falters more than late Piccolo does, I would say. And when that happens, it's very tragic because he will just sit there trying to do melee and not do anything. And then when he does pop off, he pops off. But sure, that's what's supposed to happen.
Of course, yes.
But I mean, I shouldn't talk too much about him, too much bad about him, because he has done very well. He has been a very needed addition to the team. Like I said at the very start, the team needed another person who can use B2s, and he was just the person to fill that role.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, the team's identity has definitely been more visible, to say the least.
yeah, he certainly is a character who's kind of fit in, and he's found himself more often than not fighting around that 50k mark for average damage. So while maybe he isn't as pop-off as he used to be, he certainly holds his own, and being a character that's helped in your guys' diversity has obviously been a huge improvement. So seeing his continued use will be certainly fun for many people, as kind of finding that forever home for Nuova has been an issue he's struggled with for many years, being someone who is basically locked to free agency. So I presume we'll be seeing him here on Namek for a long while, and unless there's some nonsense with some Shenron trading, but that's something down the line we can worry about. Donut coming across Nuova here. I guess what are your thoughts on the man? We hear from Oasis that he's a scarier more in thought than in practice.
Yeah, I think that's fair to an extent. I chain him to 17 type of style, but with better B2s, arguably. B2s, when they do be thrown out, it's really difficult to dodge them. He has the ping type style, and he has this big giant ball of flame that just comes at you, right? And it's really hard to dodge that. So those do about 8,000, right? A piece, something like that, 9,000. So it's really solid damage when it does get thrown out. So I believe you guys have done key builds on him before, if I remember right, to kind of help with the spam and put Indignation to help with the damage output. So it's fine builds, all that, and he has a fine kit. The main issue is when he gets into the mass power mode, the ult is just atrocious and no one wants it, and it's really sad. So that's the downside of it. But you can say the same thing about I know as with Krillin and Foster when they have the energy ballet type thing, right? It's well, not the one you wanted, buddy, but hey, good job, I guess. I don't know. It's that type of sadness. But his melee game isn't great, but it is quick as stated. But it's one of those situations where, yes, he does one thing with his B2s very well. However, if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't spam, it's basically hey, why did you even show up type of thing. That's very, very similar to let's say 16 doing only B2s, right? It's well, we built you for melee, why aren't you doing melee type thing, right? So, in theory, he's definitely a thought of hey, he'll hit 80k, then steal a 70k. In practice, he'll about 50k, which is still great. Most teams would say, hey, You knew 50k, you took your man and then some. Perfect, that's all we need you to do. And I feel with the amount of characters that are able to take the man on Namek as a team, that should be more than enough for them to get a bunch of wins in the season.
I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly. I will say two things. A, we tried the key build because, like I said, his key charge rate was nerfed pretty significantly, in my opinion. But the problem was is that his alongside the key charge, alongside his charge rate being nerfed, his you know burst attack was lowered to about 7,000. 7,400, something like that. Point is, it didn't do as much damage as we thought it would. And if you're throwing out that B2, sure, that's great, but compared to the fact that he kind of needs Super Plus in order to actually make his B2s worthwhile, it really put us in the bind where it's like, do we want quality over quantity or vice versa? And we just chose quality over quantity because of the fact people were just letting him charge. So I might as well go for the higher damage more often than not. And then secondly, his melee is nothing to scoff at.
Yeah.
As much as I would rather him, throw out B2s, his melee is actually one of the funnier things about him because of how he combos. And how he combos, into vanishing attacks, into dragon homing, into heavy finishes, to all these combo enders, deals so much damage that it's pretty astounding once he actually gets in the groove of just kicking someone to death. And it's one of the things I love about him outside of his burst.
I mean, a counterpoint to that burst attack, for those that don't know, it is the same size as a lot of the planet destroying ults, like Frieza, basically the Frieza race ults, but as a normal B2, and that's after being lowered in size. So it's still a pretty massive B2, so that's where the quantity was that Oasis was talking about is, well, he's throwing out giant balls of fire that are absolutely massive. So do I want him to deal more, or do I just want him to throw more? Because they indeed do hit a good chunk of the time, even from distance, just due to their sheer size and the fact that they come at a decent speed. So keep that in mind, that the damage nerf and all that was because of how just utterly terrifying they are.
Yeah, fair enough.
And of course his Ram B2, while being 4 bars and kind of costly, like 90% of the AI don't know what to do against it and just kind of get tackled. So
Yep.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like that deserves to be a 4-bar B2 because of how often it hits and because of the damage that it does. That and Super Explosive Wave, those two B2s deserve to be 4 bars. Simply because of how often they hit and how big they are.
Shut.
But I digress.
Well, is there any other
questions?
Yeah, is there do you have any other questions for Oasis here, Donut, on Nuova?
On Nuova? Nah.
Costume 2 win?
What do you think? What do you think of Nuova? How do you feel about facing him?
Oh, he's quite terrifying. If he gets his distance off and can start spamming, it is very difficult to close him down due to the recovery and how difficult it is to dodge one burst attack that he's usually able charged up to go for another one. And I mean, even though he never runs any attack bonuses, his base rush blasts help to keep people away. So if you don't have light body, he can kind of break your combo string just by, if you're not following fast enough, he just starts slapping you in the face with fireballs. So overall, while not like someone I'm worried about sweeping the team, he's always been like a huge planning point around the team due to just like when a team has a spammer that's like actually a strong spammer, it is quite terrifying.
In regards to Nova's melee game, I believe once he hits a certain amount of hits on you, he'll combo 15 hit combo. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but it feels like whenever you hit like 7 or 8 hits in a row, he'll just go all the way up to 15. Do we know if that's actually a thing?
That may be a thing.
Yeah, he is a long. Yeah. The thing is, he also from time to time will put Rush Blast in his combo, which with the fact that they do like more than his melee. It just makes his combos go kind of crazy as well. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It'll stack up very quickly.
he has a lot of tools for sure when it comes to offense, which makes it quite terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But
sure.
he is a very much a glass cannon.
He be.
Will you be running Custom 2 this season? Will you get Silver Nuova? Or is he still
Oh.
the gold standard?
Cold standard. Oh my.
Dang.
Costume 2 is atrocious, my fellow.
Oof. Well then.
Atrocious.
Oof.
I think it's fair to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Well, with that, shall we move on to the third member of the Piccolo chorus?
Oh, I can't
So
wait
let's
to
do it.
talk to this guy.
Alrighty then, Tambourine, Tambo Wambo. Certainly a polarizing character on the team. He's
Mhm.
been known to have very decent melee. This is like a league-wide thing. Obviously, having a 2-bar B2 is quite scary, because it's no matter how much you're building into B2s, it's just something they always have access to. One of the more demon-based characters, so he's just awesome to look at. Terrifying threat when it comes to what he is. Though he does have his cons. He's well, having a 2-bar B2, it's only about 5,000, so it can be a little weak when compared
Sure.
to some others. Being a Dragon Ball character means his stats aren't as high as other characters in the league as well, kind of limits him there. And while he has an incredible ult, it is a rush ult, so looks very fun and does some cool stuff, but unfortunately it is a little harder to kind of hit, especially in a consistent basis. So very polarizing. I think most people would say he's kind of a melee standard, which is funny because his melee is certainly not the quickest and not the hardest hitting, but he's just so consistent with getting longer combos off that he's built himself up as a threat in the league. So, Oasis, what are your thoughts? I know you have more than a few unkind words, but build up your team a little here.
Oh man, you shouldn't have said that on Tambourine. That's just like the one person I hate the most. I'm sorry.
Well, you're trying to bring your team to a wider audience here, so
Yep.
True, but
that's
I'm
that's
gonna
what
be
this is.
honest.
I want to
Hype him
hear
up.
about your
Hype man.
characters. You don't have
Oh,
to be purely positive, but
of course. Trust me.
he's obviously better than
Yeah.
early Piccolo, so you can't fully tell me he's bad.
I
True.
really wish I could say that too, but that's I'll
Oof.
talk about that later. You are right though. Sure, I shouldn't have been as harsh on Nuova and late Piccolo. They have done their job well, and they have their roles. I hate Tambourine with a burning passion because this man has, like you said, his melee isn't very fast, and because of that, people are able to break out his combos relatively easier than most other melee fighters. That's not really why I dislike him. I dislike him because of the fact that he, unlike others on the team, literally cannot function outside of attack +2, eternal life, and then slap on a couple other Patoros. Like, this man has been a thorn in the side, tired of my, stay at Namek. Now, is that just a me thing? Probably. Because, like you said, he's a gold standard for melee ever since season 6. Ever since then, during the tank meta, this man has just been popping off because he just outlasts people. And sure, his combos, once again, aren't very fast, but they do have some kick to them. Especially when he actually combos them into a smash attack and then fall. I will say him having a 2-bar B2 has been his saving grace. If he had a 3-bar B2, I honestly would have just dropped him for early Piccolo, not gonna lie, and figured him out later. But he, and since I do have to say something positive about him, he has been our best starting vanguard in the league for the longest time. Like, he will always be in the starting position no matter what, essentially, because his 1v1, his dueling potential has always been very high. The only two people who he can't beat early on is Android 16 and I want to say it was actually Super Vu, but that might be a 50-50, not entirely. Overall, great starting character, great melee, dislike him to a burning T though. It's just me.
I mean, it's fair to have those characters you don't fully enjoy. I think every
Mhm.
team has those. But
Yep.
in terms of what he does for the team, just being a 40k starter that kind of always does his job is it's never a bad. And we've seen this last season, he's changed around lots of builds and still kept up the performance. So while maybe not, a great contender for build diversity on the squad, he at least has shown that he can handle multiple Patars and still put out decent performances. So maybe again, he is unfortunately just lackluster due to being a Dragon Ball era character, and not just that, but being a minion of a character in Dragon Ball. So he didn't even get a lot of time in his own arc. So
Mhm.
he's just left with lower tools, but he's made very good use of them in the league. So it just goes to show that sometimes you don't need the best tools to make work of it. Sometimes you can get by with what is and be just a nice little wall character for the squad. He might be the door opener for Namek, but he's damn good at his job.
Yep.
There is one thing I will add is that recently I learned that he actually has no defense minus, which
That's
came
true.
as a shock to me because I, for the longest time, thought he had defense minus 2, right? And I will admit, it's because of the defense minus. It's because I thought he had defense minus 2 that I really disliked him. But now learning that he actually has no defense minus, I don't know what to think. Because now it's like either he's actually worth building around, and actually keeping, or he's taking more damage than he. No. But just a side note, I feel like I've been Bears team Baird here with Tambourine's defense.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly it can be hard to tell with a lot of the Dragon Ball characters, seeing as how they have you can probably get it right more often than not that they have at least a defense -1. So certainly helped to up his own stock. How do you see Tambourine? Don't it? Heard a lot about him already from the Namek holder himself, but coming in as a team going up against you, you basically know more often than not Tambourine's probably going to be starting up against you.
Yeah, more often than not, he will be, if not starting, he'll be second, right? He's up in the front type of thing. And when you look at Tambourine as a whole, you want someone who can be very aggressive-minded towards him, right? Don't allow him time to spam out the B2, that 2-bar B2 that can just constantly be thrown out, considering if he has any sort of key on him, right? Be really fast on that. However, since he's one of the more historically better in the melee department, it's not always easy to just plug and play a character, right? He builds a lot of thought into him when playing with him, so you don't know what he's gonna be on. You don't know if he's gonna be on key, defense, attack. I guess you can try to do super if you want to just try to in that 2-bar B2, right? Kind of stack those up as fast as you can. It's kind of hard. It's kind of like a chess game, right? Trying to figure out what would my opponent want to go with, what would Namek want to go with in response to my team. I think historically they've done key, and that's key in defense, just because attack is on was it like Piccolo, right? So it's a fun thought process, like a puzzle, I guess. But the Tambourine as a whole, I'm not too scared of going into the match. But once you start the match, you start to realize that, oh crap, I didn't plan enough for him, or oh, I didn't expect he'll do this type of thing. He has a lot of variability to him, and he'll be able to take his man, or very close to taking his man, no matter what he does, barring some outliers. But generally, he'll be able to take his man, which causes a lot of issues for you.
Now, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I will actually counter matchup wise and say what you really want versus Tambourine is somebody, well, Fasha. Just Fasha, she's a melee monster. What you really want is somebody who can throw up E2s. And that's why he has so much trouble with Android. In particular, he's had so much trouble with Android 17 because of the fact that 17 can keep up with his melee aggression while also throwing out hard hitting B2s. If you have juice,
yeah, I guess to counterpoint your counterpoint, my team is generally aggressive characters, right? Just that's what androids are, right? So
Yeah,
I view 17 as an aggressive B2er, right? Essentially.
Right.
I mean, androids,
Exactly.
when we get, or as we've gone through, have the unique, passive key. So they're a
Yeah.
little different when talking about compared to
Of
a
course.
large chunk of it. But yeah, I think we've gotten the point across. Tambourine is a character who shouldn't be as good as he is with the tools that he has, but he's made it work out. So
Yep.
Oh
with
yeah, that's a fair description. That's
Yep.
a very good description, right?
Yep.
with that, are you ready to move on to your fourth member?
Uh,
Come on, this is a good
Do
one.
it.
It's Nail. Nail's
Nail.
quickly becoming a fan favorite when watching Namek.
Mm-hmm.
A newer pickup for the squad, somebody who's been on and off for years, but seems to have finally made it his forever home. And with good reason. He's got a lot of good pros. His B2s are very strong. He's got a super explosive wave that he loves to use, as well as a full power energy wave that he always seems to hit after a combo. His B1s are very strong with the max power and stalling, and he's just been a pretty consistent and versatile threat this last season. Kind of he seemed like a character that basically needed to be built like Piccolo to work, but for whatever reason he's gone to show that like he's okay with taking all kinds of Bataras on and still making it work. He just needs maybe a little melee here and a little B2 there, but for the most part, he's come in as that versatile damage dealer. Though, of course, as with many characters, they do have their cons, and he has a rush ult, which is unfortunate. It's just it's an amazing ult again. Looks super cool, but being a rush ult, it has caused as many issues as it's caused great moments. While stalling is a really good B1 to increase charge rate, it takes a long time, and that's all it does. So I know there's more than a few times it's like, use the other one, get max power, come on. And then, of course, they missed out on giving him nail gun. Just come on, just give him nail gun.
True.
Just why not? Maybe this next season when we can get some names modded in, we'll get his energy wave modded to nail gun. But for now, no nail gun. So big con there. So Oasis, this was obviously seen as an interesting pickup for this is who early Piccolo was partially dropped off for, was to pick up Nail. And he's certainly come out of his shell as a mediocre character to one of the better contenders on the squad. How would you talk about your man here, your Namek native?
Now, for once, I actually have nothing bad to say about my character. I love Nail to death because of his stalling. Actually, the fact that it gives him key charge and power body has made him such a fun character to build around, especially when building him as a bulky meleeer. The fact that he is able to, get power body, go max power mode, and then just run up on people in super explosive wave, rinse and repeat. It's been a joy to watch, honestly. And I'm so glad we finally have been able to nail as a bulky, melee fighter who can outlast people and is willing to tag, willing to set up for his fellow comrade. I mean, we've seen his performances where it's on defense +3 eternal life, and he just stays, he just sticks, he stalls. Like his name said, he stalls the match until his teammates are ready to clean up after him. And just his consistency in being a anchor for the team and making sure that the team doesn't completely lose their chances at winning. That right there, I love it so much. Obviously his B2s are pretty generic though. Full power energy wave, super explosive wave. Not the most creative, but they get the job done. I love his ult. Sure, it's a rush ult. It doesn't hit all the time, but when it does, so flashy. What else is there? Melee wise, I love his melee, love his throw. I love everything about there. And he's going to be staying on this team for as long as I can.
Yeah, certainly a character that has had his critics for a long time, and rightfully so. When you're a character who kind of floats through the free agent pool, people kind of, you get a little bit of a stigma attached to you a little bit, and I think he was one who rightfully fought that off, showing that he has a lot more to him than what was initially perceived. More so than Tambourine. Tambourine was a character people, could rightfully say maybe had some issues, but Nail was one that's like, super explosive wave and full power may be pretty, generic, but the way he uses him is super well, and they are just pretty decently damaging B2s. So he's been a character who's shown that you can't always judge them by their cover, and he's come out really swinging. So, Donut, what is your opinions on the Nail?
On Nail, as a character, he's such a solid character, right? He's easily one that will take his man, do 40, 45k, and just be a very good asset for your team, no matter what B2s, as said, were generic, but very good, very just solid B2s. If you had any team say, hey, we'll give you a character with full power energy wave and super explosive wave, like, you're like, fantastic, give me him, please, yes. Because those are the ones that usually hit or connect at least somewhat consistently. The main issue when prepping against Nail is knowing that he'll be able to tank most of what you want to do. He's very similar to Tien with that, but I think Nail is actually better than Tien in one asset, meaning that he has the stalling ability, which allows him to be just even tankier, right? He has the healing on top of it. It's just, I think there was this one time where Namek was on the verge of losing the match. I think it was against Hercule or whatever, and Hercule just couldn't break through him no matter what. It was amazing seeing how Nail was able to stall out and heal and just buy time for him to regenerate everything and then go for the killing blow. It was very impressive to see him do it this past season. So that's the main thing you have to think about. Like, hey, tanky character, you give him time, it's a war of attrition basically. So burst him down, burst him fast, find yourself a 17, I guess, to try to get some B2s on him or something. But it's one of those like ticking time bomb type moments for me, at least when I look at Nail.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't his other B1 like just a max power mode? Isn't it just
I think
straight up?
so. I think all out, maybe something like that. Yeah.
Oh no, it's not. It's just full power. Just
Yeah.
Full power. Okay.
It just brings him all the way up to max power mode, so it does its
Yeah.
job well. So he's I will say, I guess technically one of his biggest flaws is that he loves using Capito's secret art. So it means more often than not he's not going to be starting unless they pull out his tank build, in which he will, but or has the ability to. But there's been more than a few times where he's hiding later in the lineup, and you have to be ready to handle him, and predict where he'll be. But being up front maybe isn't his strongest suit because he likes having his blast stocks due to the B1 kit that he has. So slight
Don't
drawback.
I mean, for a drawback, that's actually not. It's not very bad.
Yeah,
Honestly,
it's
more
not
of a
bad.
positive than anything else. The fact that he's willing to use both B1s and use them well is such a plus, in my opinion. And then also going back to what Donut said about us versus Derp, honestly, that's when I fell in love with the character. Is when he was fighting essentially a 1v3, waiting for Nuova to heal back up, and he was doing it. Like he honestly was tanking the hits. He was forcing Derp to continuously tag, making them lose their footing. And then once Nuova was ready, he tagged into Nuova and just let him go to work. It was the funnest thing I've ever seen from this team, which is why I have nothing bad to say against this character. Sure, he's stuck on Capito's secret art because he can use his B1s effectively, and because of that, he's able to burst out damage that you would never see coming, if that makes sense. Like, sure, he has strong B2s and a strong ult, sure, but the fact that he can just go full power, start doing a ping pong combo, and then ult you, his damage comes out of nowhere, which is why I must shout out Hybrid. I'm not sure if we're allowed to do this, but honestly, Nail being able to do what he does is because of what Hybrids did on Future Gohan. I would never have been able to get Nail to where he was if it wasn't for Future Gohan. So, thank you, Enemy Controller. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's been I mean, it's a common thing in the league where you see someone else get a build going very well, and you kind of go, my character seems to be somebody that does a lot of the same things, actually. And you never know when it just kind of meshes together. I think Toshiro, our Rugrats coach, has basically called about anybody who's used Key plus 2 in Eternal Life. Like, that's me. I made that. You better put hashtag Rugrats in that build name. It's just how it be
Hashtag no nuts.
sometimes.
That is.
So, no harm, no foul. There's limited Pataras, and at some point you're just going to get the same combinations. We've certainly seen it more than a few times with basically
yeah.
any defense in Eternal Life. So,
Yep.
Nail has certainly been one who, nice diversity. He can actually just pick up a lot of different builds, funny enough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that, are you guys have any more to talk about Nail, or should we move on to the Demon King himself?
I am good on Nail.
Well then, let us move on to Demon King Piccolo. He gets some basic font for being in the eyes of unfortunately a struggling character, especially after this last season. But I would think most people still say King Piccolo has this place in the league. He does have a max power mode B1, which is just always incredible to have. He also has the same 2-bar B2, and while his ult maybe isn't like uber flashy, it is still just an incredibly strong beam with just cutscene straight up big beam. So it does its job and does it well. Though he does have his cons, he's been relatively inconsistent as of late because he seems to struggle with trying to get around how he's going to deal his damage, and that damage has been unfortunately on the lower end. His 2-bar B2 is good, but again, that 5 to 6k can be a little rough, and having a rush B2 as the other can put him in trouble a lot. And unfortunately, while he is called the Demon King, he's just an old slug. So, just unfortunate naming there. Kind of ruined himself. So, Oasis, how would you describe King Piccolo here? Oh, he'll be right back in 1 second. All right, Donut, how about you describe Demon King Piccolo? I would say he's a pretty mid-tier character, but he's certainly one that maybe just has some untapped potential. But he's been on the team for pretty much as long as they've existed.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, just saying that he's a mid-tier, he has potential, but a lot of what he wants to do is sort of, not flashy, but gets the job done type of style, right? He has the, I think it's like a Samsung type of thing, very similar to that, right? The 2x2 he has. And he spams it when he does it, it's great, but he doesn't always do that, right? So it's a matter of finding the AI that loves doing that, right? If even that's like Chaozu just to get the B2s out, right? He can do that. He has a lot of versatility, I feel, with his build. He can do multiple things. He can do like a super or a key or a defense. I think he can do all of those. I don't think he has to be pigeonholed into a key build or pigeonholed into one type of mindset with him. But when planning against him, you don't really plan around him. He's not one that I really focus on. Say, hey, here's my character I have to worry about is King Piccolo. That's not when you think about when you think Namek, right? He's not an afterthought, but he's one that you can have a lot of answers for, whether that be someone who can get in his face, someone who can out tank his damage, because he has his ulti, and nothing really too flashy when does the way he wants to do, which is kind of unfortunate, but there's always that one weakest character that's on the team, and as him has that role, sadly.
Whoa, wait a minute. Did I just hear you diss?
King
Did
Piccolo?
I just hear you disrespect King Piccolo?
He is the weakest character on the team.
Whoa, okay, maybe
On the team.
stats-wise, he's the
Yeah,
weakest
stats-wise, that's what I
character on
mean.
the team.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
In
It's
spirit,
stats-wise.
this man is our strongest character by
Yeah,
far.
he's best cheerleader. Let's go.
Come on, man. How you just gonna disrespect King Piccolo, the man with the demon, what is it even called? The explosive demon wave. The man with the smug beam.
Smug
The
beam,
man
that's
who's
what it
gonna
is. Okay.
stun you, kick you in the face, throw you, and then blast you away. How you gonna disrespect him?
Oh, don't know. This did. Let's be honest. He's still a fine character. Just you have look at who has to face in competition for on his team, right? Like Nail, Nuova, Piccolo, like some pretty solid characters, right? So
He's just a strange one because it seems like he's done everything and still can't seem to find his identity. Like, is he a spammer? Is
Yeah,
he a melee? He kind of does
yeah,
it all, but nothing that stands out. So he's just, he's
yeah,
there. He's always going to be there and he's always going to do his
yeah,
thing. But he'll have seasons like last season where and his identity is struggling. It's certainly leads to him struggling since it seems like he defaults into spamming his rush B2, which pretty much as everybody knows is a can be a hard time.
yeah,
True, true. I will give you that. He's very much a jack of all trades, master of none type character. I mean, we kind of figured out what his identity is, given we only have spam left, and he's done well on it. Keep Us 2 has actually opened up a couple of new avenues for him to do things. Sure, last season he definitely wasn't performing his best. Like you said, we couldn't figure out what to build on and what AI to get. We didn't even know whether we wanted him on the team. But now coming into this season, we definitely have an idea of how to build him and where he should be, going into the future. So you should definitely expect to see him make a huge turnaround this season. I hope.
I guess I should clarify. I think he has one very, you know, main build. Unfortunately, it's probably one of the hardest builds any team can pull off, and he has the tools to do it, but it still is hard. And that's an ult spam build. I think many teams have tried and failed to make it because we've seen it work in the past where he comes out and he ults and then he powers all the way back up to max power and he ults again and you're like, oh my god, he's just shooting out these giant beams and they're killing everybody. But I think Oasis could say it best in that relying on that being consistent is almost, you know, too much gambling for one day. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean, yes. The amount of times where he's just fired in the opposite direction is too many times to count.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he. So I guess he technically does have an area he specializes in. It's just that's what I wanted to clarify. It's just unfortunately the hardest area to make use of. So he'll
Okay.
find his way. I had to put in a picture, obviously, of him firing smug beams because iconic. Though it won't be called that this next season, he will indeed still be quite smug while shooting them.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, don't worry. Unlike some other characters, he definitely has some room to grow. And once we find, I believe we found something that he can work with in regards to him ult spamming. But that'll all come to a head once the actual season starts.
At the very least, he's certainly, when compared to the ults of the rest of the team, one of the better savior users. So
oh yeah, for sure.
holds
Oh,
that
he's
Batara down quite well. Well, is there any other remarks we have on the Demon King then?
Not for me personally. Do I have anything, Oasis?
nah, just nah. I mean, besides, well, where is one? One last thing, which is your name is Drum. Is such a fun rush B2.
Mhm.
How are you going to tell me that a guy spits out an egg, summons another Namekian, who then kicks another person, his enemy, and then King Piccolo's just laughing at you the entire time? How are you going to tell me that's not a fun B2?
Yeah.
It
That's
also
pretty
feels
good.
like, while it does get him into clash trouble from time to time, it's funny how often it seems to hit as well. So,
Oh yeah, hits actually quite a lot for a Rush B2.
well, shall we move
Which
on
is
to
why I'm
the
fine.
master list
I mean,
section? Or, sorry, go ahead.
of course. No, you're good. I was just saying, which is why I'm fine with him spamming it, because he somehow finds a way to hit with that B2 some way, somehow.
Yeah, it still does like 7, 8k, something like that. So still not bad. Just decent damage.
Yeah, so moving on to the master list. Demon King, you've had enough time. You love being in the spotlight, after all. I think I put him on half the... Because he's on a lot of other teams' master lists. I love using that picture of him in the throne. One of the lower master list kind of squads in the league. Certainly not the lowest. We have some others that have been lower, but a lower one. They only have one character who's been open early, Piccolo, who they've declined to have rejoin. He's just too young. They have late Piccolo.
Yep.
just a little too inexperienced. And the others being Lord Slug, who is currently on Royals, and Shin Shenron, who is on GT. Now, funny enough, they do have the possibility of getting all of these characters, obviously
Yeah.
early being free. They can trade Demon King for Lord Slug if that ever is something they wish. Or loan, I should say loan might be more applicable. A lot of teams have been enjoying one season loans, or even for Nuova for Shin Shenron. So there's possibilities, and with Shin Shenron now being allowed to actually go into Omega, certainly opens up the possibility of that happening. But they are both also relatively restricted characters, but they're also both been shown to be spammers and tanks. So you never know. I'd say, well, maybe not an expansive master list has certainly been one that certainly has some power hidden away in the few slots it has. I guess, would you like to talk a little bit about why early Piccolo is so volatile as a character? Because he is going to be presumably asked about by any new supporters.
I mean, that goes back into our history of back before we had Nuova. Like I said earlier, we were a team that was mainly composed of one spammer and four meleeer. And trying to fit four meleeers on a team is a struggle and a half. And when you have early Piccolo being the supposed weakest of this, well, honestly, that's not even true. The fact that he showed any small tendency to spam out his rush V2 led us to believe that we could put him on a spam build. And that's what he's been on the entirety of his time on Namek. And that's really why he's been volatile. It's not the fact that he's a bad character. No, I love him. I love his kit. I love the way he fights. I love all of it. It's just the fact that we never had the ability to build him correctly. And because of that, he's always been very wishy-washy, very, very iffy. And that hasn't changed since. That hasn't changed at all this season at all, because he has been on a spam build this season, and only now have I've been going to look at him as a meleeer, and he's shown some promise. So who knows? He might be back on this team sooner than you think. Slug? I have mixed feelings about this man. Slug is a tank. Slug is a very bad spammer, to say the least. But he is a giant character with power body, which should never be underestimated.
That's what it does. Yeah.
Imagine having a kaiju on your team for free who has an explosive wave as a B2. That in itself is very valuable.
Yes.
But it's just getting to that point because he has very slow melee. His B2s are pretty bad. And his saving grace, I guess, is high tension, but that takes away from him being able to transform. So even then, that's a liability. So we don't have very high of an opinion of Slug, but we do understand he can be very powerful once you reach his, boosted stage of being giant.
Yeah, his final form.
There you go, exactly, his final form.
Yeah.
Omega, we have no intention of ever trading the Wolf for Omega.
Yeah, I figured not so.
just gonna throw that out there. Maybe, I mean, if we ever needed another meleeer, Omega would be our first choice due to just stats alone.
Mm-hmm.
Besides that, he's probably going to stay on GT for it.
I mean, there's also the potential of a late Piccolo swap, but I said Nuova due to the fact that it seems a little bit more reasonable to see Nuova, loaned, I should say, for Shin than late Piccolo due to the roles they supply on the team. So
I would honestly trade, in terms of roles, it honestly would be Omega for late, if that was ever a possibility.
Well, he doesn't start in Omega. He can transform to Omega.
Yeah.
Of course. But just the way Omega fights is very similar to the way late Piccolo fights. So that's why if I had to trade anyone, it would be late Piccolo. Not that I would trade him though.
Sure, yeah. Yes. These are all hypotheticals, so.
Of course. What do y'all think of these three? If you had to rank these three in any order,
I would say Slug first, then Shin/Omega, and then Early, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm actually
I
curious. Why would you put Slug first?
um I feel that the giant form can cause a lot of issues for various other teams, and the ability to spam out the finger beam can be very impactful since it's a 2-bar, I believe, in his lower form.
It is.
And then you have the power body, of course, with the giant form, and you have the super explosive wave as mentioned. But all that is very good, and it shuts down 2 of my characters at least, right? So, and a lot of other characters like characters on Sentai who have those rush V2s and rush holds, right? Can definitely have struggles against those types of giant forms. So that's a whole different sort of mind game you have to play with the your opponent when they have to prep for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of they're all three very weird due to Slug and Shin having some very powerful transformations. They can offer a lot, but at the same time, it's there's drawbacks to that, and they have to actually transform. I think
Yeah,
early Piccolo, while being volatile, is very build flexible because he does have some decent B1s, B2s, damage overall. He's just making him do the same thing week in, week out's been the struggle with him, is he just seems to not care as much some weeks as others, where the other two are a lot more consistent. They've had builds that they seem to do the same thing every week. Could call it maturity potentially. So overall, I think they're all three pretty good, and I would not be surprised to see at the very least some sort of loan that brings at least one of them over for a season
yeah,
or so.
I didn't see it happening.
Yeah, it's definitely in the realm of possibility. I'll say that. At least one of them.
Well,
Yeah.
is there any other topics on Namek you'd like to bring up, Oasis? Besides being
I
lonely in the supporter chat?
I mean, I would consider that a good and a bad thing. That besides the point. I can't wait to see what modded characters we get. Because I've heard that we could possibly get Drum as an actual character. That would be a laugh and a half, for me at least. Other than that, as a team, I think we're very balanced. I think we know our roles and we know what each character needs to do in order to succeed. We're definitely not a team that has that we can on the coach. This is a team that requires teamwork and requires coordination, which is why studying up on our opponents and being ready for the matches is so pivotal to us getting the W. Moreover, I do believe that if we the most important part of the match for us is the beginning, because getting the lead is so important for us to maintain our momentum and getting the win. Whereas if we don't win that matchup, like a Tambourine isn't able to beat his man, and his man isn't at like half a bar or less, then it turns out to be very difficult for us to actually pull it back together because we really, really rely on having a lead of sorts to carry us through the rest. So I don't know whether that's a good thing. That's for anyone to say, but I do believe that it is one of our core strengths that we, as a team, work well from most of the time.
Yeah, I think kind of in a similar boat to how my squad is, where it's just more so a consistent squad, and you need to get those predictions right, because if you don't get those right, it feels really awkward trying to come back. Um,
Yep.
while having stronger characters to do that, sometimes it feels like that's not enough because you need the rest of your team who maybe aren't gonna pop off in the same way. So
Of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
it's also made Namek an endearing team, and there are still times where those characters pop off and bring out some nonsense. They indeed have some crazy kits, and your team has a lot of, funny enough, max power mode spammers, even if not built towards it. So there are times where you just see some weird, crazy, bullshit that just totally pulls a match back from the edge, and it's impossible to tell who's gonna win.
True. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because one of the things that I find to be our biggest strengths is dealing with power body. oddly enough, because of the fact that we have so many accesses to max power mode, and because Nuova has innate draconic aura, we deal with power body, or like we deal with like transformation power bodies, or well, not B1 power body, but you know what I'm saying, like Broly power body or Kaiju power body. We
Sure.
deal with that a lot better than other teams do because of the fact we have access to max power mode and stuff like that. And like you were saying, because of the fact that we can get to those strengths quickly, we're able to pump out damage out of nowhere, like Nail does for whatever reason, or King Piccolo does whenever he feels like actually participating in the match. And I absolutely love that about my team. The fact that we have the versatility to counter most things, except the androids. Honestly, don't your team should just get deleted because of how much it
Well,
counters.
one of our least favorite matchups to face is against Namek. So
How?
we feel historically, you guys are better than us, especially on Tommy's lookout. It messes up us a lot. And actually, I think the first season I was coach, one of our losses was to you. We had like 3 losses the whole season. It was one of them was to you. Yeah.
I need to run that back, honestly, because you, Boojins, and honestly now Cinema are our 3 biggest matchups in this current league. Because you, Donut, have Cell.
We have a Cell.
Team. Yes, you have a cheater character who does everything and anything. And you have 17 who does the exact same thing, only with Super Plus 2. Honestly, if I had to say our team's biggest weakness, it's aggressive B2ers. Honestly.
Yeah. That's fair. So characters like 17, Majin Vegeta, those type of characters.
Yep.
Yeah.
17 Majin Vegeta, Evil Boo.
Yeah,
Evil Boo when he works. Wait, does Evil Boo work?
He works again, yeah.
Nice, beautiful. We love it.
To a degree.
No, we don't. Kid Boo. But yeah.
To a point, yeah. I think one thing we haven't asked you yet, but what brought you to the Namekians? What intrigued you to join that team?
Oh, Piccolo, dude. Easy. Like, I love Piccolo in the show, and having the ability to just customize him and make him carry was like a dream come true.
Nice. Is that a certain form?
Certain form?
Yeah, like early, late. No.
Oh.
Like what's your favorite character on your team, basically? Without Nail. Is it Nail now?
Ooh, yeah. I was about to. This man is reading my mind. Honestly, no. It's a tie between Nail and early Piccolo.
Okay.
I mean, if you're exclusively talking about on the team, it's Nail.
Yeah. Okay.
Because all the memes. But I love early Piccolo. Exactly, Nail's our boy.
Yeah.
He's our champ. But I love early Piccolo because of his kit, because of his Rush B2, and because of his B2s. I am not a fan of his melee because all he does is just flail his arms around, and that looks pretty.
No, he's trying. He's doing his best. Yeah.
He's
doing something.
He's trying. He's putting effort.
But the difference between his melee and the late Piccolo's melee is like, what in the world happened?
Like, what the hell happened between point A and B? What the?
Like how you go from flailing your arms around to like actually doing melee combos? What?
Experience. He got older.
Yeah.
Early's like mostly from his Raditz fight, and he got his ass kicked by a character who's technically weaker than a Cyberman. So
he got destroyed.
Say what you will. There's a lot that happened in between those two between the Raditz fight and fighting Android 17. So you could say he probably learned how to throw a punch by then.
I'd assume so.
And he became part of Nail, so it might have just been his fusion with Nail that made him so good.
It might have been Nail. Let's be honest. Nail K.
Just Nail came in and he's like, I'll teach you how to throw a punch. This is what you do.
You know what? I'm gonna change my answer. Late Piccolo is my new favorite because he like you just said. He literally Late Piccolo is just a fusion between Nail and early Piccolo. So
beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. That just works out for the best. But yeah, just overall, I love my team. As much as I have thrown shade at them
Mhm.
for inconsequential things. I love my team to death
Mhm.
because they are mean, they're green, and they're here to play. Sure, they may not be the strongest team. Sure, we may have our weaknesses, very obvious weaknesses, but that doesn't mean we're any less, if we're any less weaker, or we're any less of a contender for the bowl than any other team in the league.
True.
And yeah, if you ever wanted to join a team that is down to earth and requires planning, unlike throw this character out, let him spam, and melee people to death and or sell
Yeah.
people to death out.
Fun and called out of here.
I mean, I
And
think
tell
every
I love
team
you.
does its fair amount of
Of
planning,
course,
but
of course, yeah, we all do planning.
Namek
You
has
know
a
I
few
love you,
Dragon
right?
Ball characters,
Yeah,
so
that's
they
fine.
have to utilize planning to a higher degree, as they would argue.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
We had a Dragon Ball character, Rippin and
That's a
Peaceater. Yeah,
right. But
Yeah.
like that's what threw me off is the fact that Tambourine and King Piccolo don't have defense minuses. So what?
Mhm.
What I swear, I cannot be the only one who thought this. Am I? Did y'all know
I,
this?
I knew he was fine. I knew he was
well,
better
there's been the
defense.
defense list posted several times
Yeah,
in the chat.
yeah,
I've
so-
seen people's defenses,
Oh.
so I kind of knew he had no
Yeah.
bonus damage.
No one told me.
It
Which
got
is new.
pinged.
I
There's plenty of people you
I
can ping.
mean, I'm just saying. I've been for the past 5 years. I thought Tambourine had defense -2, and King Piccolo had like defense -1.5 or something like that. And now I'm figuring out that they had no defense minus. I'm like,
Mhm.
what in the world? The more you see, that's the thing. I've been with this team for like 6 years, and I still learn new things every day.
That's
Yeah,
what
there's
it's about.
always a lot going on. Well,
Mhm.
if that's that, I think I'm ready to close it out if you guys are. Got quite a lot of Namek in today.
I'm good.
I got nothing else to say.
Yeah.
Except
Alrighty then.
Nails are a boy, and Tambourine's a scrub.
Hear that? If you guys support Tambourine, you need to join the team and create a club inside the
Yep.
club. So,
There you go.
with that, that's been the DBZ League Capsule Cast. As always, we'll have links in the description to the Discord where if you want to join a team or specifically join Namek, you can find links there. There's also links to the website, which has all the stats, PTARs, all the information in the league, the Twitter, which will give announcements, and of course, if you subscribe and hit the bell icon, you'll be notified whenever we are doing streams and Capsule Casts as well. So, with that, I'm DoorGuard.
I'm Donut.
And I am Oasis, also known as Pickle Jeff.
I hope you guys have a good one.